You ever get that feeling, you walk into a store and you feel like all eyes are on you? Or you're waiting at a counter and you just get ignored. It's this sense that you're being treated differently, but you can't quite put your finger on why. Well, that feeling has a name: marketplace discrimination. It's this really subtle but incredibly powerful force that shapes so many of our daily interactions. So today, we're going to break it all down: what it is, why it happens, and how it affects every single one of us.
Okay, let's just start right here. This quote from researchers Francis and Robertson, wow, it really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? For a lot of people, something as simple as a shopping trip isn't just a neutral activity. It's an experience that's completely filtered through their identity. So, what do we actually mean when we talk about marketplace discrimination?
So, at its core, it's pretty simple. It's when you're treated differently, not because of your money or what you want to buy, but because of who someone thinks you are. It basically creates this system of insiders and outsiders right there at the checkout counter. And trust me, it is way more common than you might think.
Yeah, and we're not just talking about those big, shocking stories that make the evening news. This is about the small stuff, the little daily frictions that happen in stores, online, pretty much any time you're trying to get a service. It's this widespread issue that touches a huge range of people.
I mean, look at this. Research has documented this happening across so many different groups. For example, studies have shown that women often get quoted higher prices at car dealerships, or they're treated like they don't know what they're doing in hardware stores. In another case, a gay couple was flat out refused a double room at a hotel. This isn't just a few bad apples, it's a clear pattern.
Now, sometimes it's totally obvious, right? Like someone just refuses to serve you. But honestly, more often than not, it's sneaky, it's covert, it's being made to wait just a little longer than everyone else. It's the cashier who won't make eye contact. It's kind of like death by 1,000 cuts, these little microaggressions that all add up to send one clear message: you're not really welcome here. So the big question is, why? Why does this keep happening?
To really get the why, we kind of have to peel back the layers. We need to look at this from three different levels: the individual, the group, and the entire system itself. Okay, so on the individual level, a lot of it just comes down to unconscious bias. These are the stereotypes we all carry around about who has power and who doesn't, and they can totally affect our behavior without us even realizing it. For example, one study found that male employees offered less compensation to female customers after a problem, all because of a subconscious perception that they had less social power to challenge it. Now let's zoom out a bit to the group level. This is where something called social identification theory kicks in, and it really boils down to a basic human instinct. We tend to be more comfortable with and more favorable towards people we see as being like us. And here's the key part: this doesn't require any hate or malice to lead to worse treatment for people who are in the out group. It just happens. And that brings us to the biggest picture, the systemic level. Here, some researchers like Francis and Robertson apply concepts from critical race theory. This perspective argues that the marketplace was never a neutral playing field to begin with. It suggests that racism is actually embedded in the very structures of our economy, and that concepts like whiteness as property act as a kind of privilege that the market is basically designed to protect and uphold. So if you're faced with that reality every day, how do you respond? I mean, how do you cope when the simple act of buying a coffee could turn into a moment of conflict? Well, the effects are both really personal and, frankly, economically devastating. Let's just take housing for a second. Decades of systemic discrimination in real estate and bank lending have created this absolutely staggering wealth gap. And get this: the gap in homeownership between white and Black Americans is actually wider today than it was back in 1968 when the Fair Housing Act was passed. It's hard to believe. And that translates directly to dollars and cents. Since owning a home is the #1 way most families build wealth, that gap has created a shocking disparity. The net worth of a typical Black family today is just 1/10 of a typical white family. This kind of constant pressure has pushed consumers to find new ways to navigate the world. And more, they're turning to technology for help. So people are using technology as a kind of shield. They use it to prepare for battle, doing all the research on prices and reviews online before they even set foot in a store. They use it to seek temporary refuge, where if they have a bad experience in a store, they just walk out and buy the thing on their phone. And for some, it becomes a permanent withdrawal, where they just decide to do all their shopping online to avoid the bias completely. But is the online world really the solution?
Yeah. The internet was supposed to be the great equalizer, right? A place where it didn't matter who you were. But in a lot of ways, it's just created a whole new digital frontier for the same old problems. And you can totally see the appeal. This quote from Antoine, a law enforcement officer in his 50s, just nails it. He says, online, you can escape the feeling of being watched, the stereotypes, the judgment. You can just be a person buying a thing.
But here's the paradox, the flip side. Bias can be literally baked right into the code of a platform. Think about how Airbnb used to require photos right up front. Then you have algorithms that, if trained on biased data, can scale up that discrimination on a massive level. And when you do face discrimination online, your legal options can be really limited, thanks to things like mandatory arbitration clauses and laws that just weren't designed for the internet age. And that all leads to the huge legal question that courts and regulators are wrestling with right now. Should a platform like Airbnb or Uber be considered a public accommodation? Should they have the same legal responsibility to prevent discrimination as a hotel or a restaurant? Right now, our laws are still playing catch-up with our technology. So, what's the takeaway here? It's a really complex problem. It's rooted in psychology, it's baked into our history, and now it's being coded into our digital lives. So, what can we actually do about it? Well, the research points to a two-pronged approach. First, companies have to step up. They need to be auditing their own algorithms for bias, they need to implement real training that actually works, and they need to design their platforms in ways that minimize the chance for bias to creep in. But at the same time, policymakers have to act. We need to update our laws for the 21st century, hold these massive platforms accountable, and start to address the historical harms that created these inequities in the first place. And that leaves us with this final, really challenging thought, which is inspired by the work of Francis and Robertson. We've all heard of the invisible hand of the market, this idea that it's a neutral force. But what the research suggests is that this hand has never been invisible. It's often had a very specific identity. And so creating a truly fair marketplace means we have to first acknowledge that reality, and then consciously, deliberately, and tirelessly work to build a new one where every single person can truly belong.